Hi, it's David Gomm in the Stained Glass Studio, and this is some quick training on how to solder rings onto your window. Now, I'm showing you this because somebody wrote to us recently asking how to do it. And I thought, well, that's something we haven't actually specifically shown, so this ought to be a good piece of training. Those of you who are experienced, you'll watch this and say, oh yeah, I knew that already. But anyhow, I wanted to mention that when I was a kid, I read in a little magic book how you could take two rings and be able to so if you get really good at it, you'd have these two rings that are locked. They're solid. You go show somebody, and then you just abracadabra, pull them apart. Okay, so why is that able to happen? Well, it's because these rings are split. See, you got your split in the rings. Anyhow, what you want to do when you're putting rings together or putting rings onto a window, make sure and run the two rings to where they're both close together. See how this one still looks like it's split? And now as I twist it, now it's a nice rounded ring. Now, at the end of this video, I'm going to put up an end card, those little square boxes, and let's see, it'll be on this side, I think. No, it'll be on this side. It'll be on this side. Anyhow, the little box will tell you how to go to training that we put up before about how to make your own rings. That might be of interest to you. So, when you go to solder a ring on, you use your grozing pliers and you hold it nice and tight, and you want to have the split out here so that when you put it down onto the soldered part of the window, it'll get covered up with solder. What I like to do is put half the ring onto the metal, half the ring out past the edge. Then I like to put some flux on there. Okay, now one of the things I'm doing is I'm holding this ring until the solder cools. If I move this, in fact, I'm going to do it. I'm going to move it. I'll solder this. Okay, now I'm going to solder it and see if I can make it. Now, as it's cooling, if I move it at all, see how I moved it? Now watch what happens. It broke right off. The reason that broke off is because what happens is if you move it at all while it's cooling, a crystalline structure will occur. You'll have a cold solder joint. So you want to make sure that it does not move while it's cooling. A couple years ago, a student and I were working together on a window, and she soldered a ring on one side of the window, and I soldered a ring on the other side. And I hadn't explained to her well enough about a cold solder joint. And so her husband said that the next day he was standing in the kitchen drinking a cup of cocoa on a nice, calm winter day, and he was just looking at the window, and all of a sudden it let go. Fortunately, it was hanging from 2 chains instead of just 1, and so it just swung there in the kitchen window. So they brought it back, and then I soldered the ring back on. But what had happened is she had gotten a cold solder joint. Now, just for additional, let's just do it again. Additional training, is that the word I wanted to end that sentence on?
So do you suggest 2 different chains rather than one from one ring to the other?
That's a good question. I guess it depends on the project. You know, sometimes there have been times where we've had 3 rings where people were to come on.
You move.
Not on there yet. Okay, now on this one, it doesn't have as much solder as the other one, so I'm going to add more solder. So I let go with my pliers, and dang, you know, that's hanging up there pretty high. Maybe that's the reason it didn't feel like it had enough solder on it.
Whenever I have students, who try to let go and then put more solder on, it always falls off. So when I'm teaching, I tell them to hang on to that, to your pliers the whole time.
Well,
but you're a professional.
Yeah, see, I only heat one side and then I heat the other. You see, I wait for that to cool, and actually I don't really need that much. But what I'm trying to do here is get enough solder on here so that it looks like an L shape, so that it's got a nice balanced symmetry to it. Now, this doesn't matter too much because it is on the back of the window. And so when we hold it up, you see, you don't really see it near as much. Now this is an older window, and it's got a little bit of corrosion on it, and it really needs to be polished. And I'll let Jeannie do that. Make sure and like the video, or leave comments, or subscribe, or all that stuff. And join us on Patreon if you'd like to learn more about our Covey Center project. Then again, this is the training for putting rings on. Remember, on the end card, it's going to have how to make your own rings. So thanks for joining us. See you next time.